This is a presentation on Ansel Adams, who was an American photographer and is most famous for his work in landscape photographs and environmental advocacy. This quote by Ansel Adams best sums up his philosophy of taking photographs because he believed that words could not describe the majesty of nature, and a photograph was required for people to experience nature as it was, and not as it was typically portrayed. Ansel Adams was born in San Francisco in 1902, the only son of a relatively elderly couple. His mother was nearly 40 years old when he was born. In 1906, during the Great San Francisco earthquake, he fell to the ground, breaking his nose, permanently changing his appearance. As a result of his circumstances, he grew up in a clearly Victorian household characterized by social and emotional conservatism. The financial panic of 1907 crippled his family's fortune, permanently resulting in his mother spending the rest of her life brooding over the loss. His father, Charles Adams, encouraged Ansel to pursue his passions, patiently supporting him to the point that after failing to fit into various schools, he was taken out of school and taught by his father and aunt. His natural shyness and hyperactiveness, coupled with probably dyslexia, resulted in Ansel often taking long walks in the wild regions of the Golden Gate and resulting area, culminating in an appreciation for the natural, which would shape his photographic career later on. In 1916, he first visited Yosemite Valley, becoming enthralled by it, such that every year afterwards, for the rest of his life, he would spend a portion of it in the valley. At the same time, he took up music and the piano, teaching himself just as he did with photography, and for a time seriously considered becoming a professional pianist, relegating photography at this time to a hobby. He joined the Sierra Club in 1919, during its infancy years, becoming close friends with people who would become lead environmentalists and conservatists. He died in Monterey, California in 1984. Adams' photographic career began as a 13-year-old when his parents gave him a Kodak No. 1 Brownie camera and a year-long pass to the Panama Pacific Exposition, which he put to use photographing at the fair and the Golden Gate almost every day afterwards, using the resulting images to create albums which he called photo diaries. Later on, he traveled to Yosemite National Park for the first time. Immediately, he became enamored by what he saw. Recalling, Adams said that that first impression of the valley, white water, azaleas, cool fir caverns, tall pines and solid oaks, cliffs rising to undreamed-of heights, the poignant sounds and smells of the Sierra, was a culmination of experience so intense to be almost painful. From that day in 1916, my life has been colored and modulated by the great earth gesture of the Sierra. In 1919, he joined the Sierra Club, and for the next 4 years he was a keeper of the LeConte Memorial Lodge. It was during this time that Adams first published his photographs in the club's bulletin, describing them in hindsight as little more than snapshots. In 1930, Adams met with Paul Strand, who showed him a set of negatives he had just processed. Adams became amazed by the detail and tonal range in Strand's negatives, so much that he abandoned pictorial photography in favor of pure straight photography. This style of photography emphasized having no visible signs of manipulation in the final print, by which is meant altering the clarity or content of the subject on the photograph. By 1932, he had formed Group F64 along with photographers who held similar beliefs, most notably Edward Weston. Though loosely based, the group brought the West Coast photographic vision and straight photography to national attention. In 1933, Adams traveled to New York to meet Alfred Stieglitz, whom, upon inspecting Adams' work, commented that they were amongst the finest photographs he had ever seen, and proceeded to give Adams his own standalone show in his gallery, the first show in over 4 years. In 1936, the Sierra Club chose Adams to create a series of photographs to be used in the club's lobby for the creation of a new national park in the Kings River region in the Sierra Nevadas. The work resulted in a limited edition book titled Sierra Nevada, the John Muir Trail, which gained favor of the Secretary of the Interior, Harold Hikes, who presented it to President Franklin Roosevelt, convincing the president to embrace the Kings Canyon project, resulting in 1940 in the creation of the King Canyon National Park, This was the first time Adams' photographs had been used in the political arena. As a result of his rising fame between 1939 and 1940, Adams compiled a series of books with the aid of Fred Archer, which provided technical specifications for what he termed the zone system. This was the method and techniques Adams used to create his photographs, beginning with pre-visualization, the final print on the ground glass of the camera. Adjustments would be made in the exposure and development of the film such that all the tones in the image would become strained to a certain range, which would facilitate the printing of the image in the way the photographer visualized it beforehand. If nothing else, every photographer since Adams who has studied the sound system can agree that it is an excellent tool when creating an image which alone would have sufficed to guarantee Adams' fame in such the same way as William Henry Fox Talbot is remembered for his technical contributions to the photographic medium. Lodgepole Pines is a photograph by Ansel Adams, one of his earliest, showing his pictorial style that was prevalent in 1921. This can be seen by the soft focus and lightness of the image, which creates an ethereal theme to the whole. Nearly 6 years later, Juniper Tree Detail shows a shift towards a more realistic style, depicted by the greater detail in the image, and moving towards the modernist vision of an abstract photograph. Monolith, the Face of Half Dome, was Adams' first critically acclaimed image, and is an example of a style which would later mark his career, that being the dark sky, which was created using a red filter to create a more dynamic and emotional image. This image, Trees and Cliffs on Eagle Peak, is a continuation of that style, but instead of focusing on dark skies, he uses awe-inspiring height to dramatize the effect and height of the mountain. This is the first of many images which Adams would make of Half Dome, and shows his dedication to the Yosemite Valley by repeatedly photographing the same mountain. This image shows a style that would later define Adams, and can be seen in Moonrise over Hernandez, having the same dark sky, moon, and basic composition. The Teton and Snake River is one of the earliest images used for the creation of national parks, which enthralled Congress into passing such national parks. Clearing Winter Storm is a continuation of his style, preferring dynamic and emotional scenes through a wide range of tonal values and deep depth of field. Likewise, this image continues his tradition of going for the majestic. Sand dunes is an example of how, even though Adams created his own unique style, he was influenced by other photographers such as Edward Weston. Burnout Falls is an example of a balanced composition, creating an S shape going from the river to the tree to the falls and back to the mountains. Sequoia is another example of the abstraction but retaining the sharp focus that characterized Adams' works. Foam Mirror Lake is a continuation of the abstraction, and like the title says, it's a picture of foam on water. Summit of El Capitan is a picture taken late into Adams' careers and shows his continual devotion to the same style that defined him. As previously stated, one of Ansel Adams' significant contributions to photography was the zone system, which was a scientific method which helped define and visualize an image as the photographer is setting up the scene by controlling the exposure and development of the negative, with the intent that the resulting image is much easier to print in a way that was visualized beforehand. As a founding member of Group F64, following his meeting with Paul Strand, he became the lead advocate for straight photography, arising from the desire to achieve the greatest detail and tonal range possible in his images. Though many of the barriers to photography being accepted as fine art had already been addressed by his time, there is still lingering prejudice against the medium, which Adams sought to counter through his photography. Nevertheless, his greatest achievement has been his photographs being used to create and protect national parks, becoming synonymous with the landscape they represent, and for many people being the preconceived image of what a natural park looks and should look like.